Okay, good evening and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're doing Nazir Daf Mem Zayin, number 47. We're starting a new parak today, the seventh parak of Nazir. Very exciting. Let's get started. The Mishnah on Mem Vav is on the bottom. Mishnah says, Gilech al Zevach v'nimsa posel. Right? We said he has to, at the end of his Nazirah, he brings 3 karbanos and he shaves his head. So technically, you could shave your head after bringing one of the karbanos. So he brought one korban, and then he shaved his head. And then it turned out that the korban was puzzled because the blood became tummy before he threw it on the mizbeach, or maybe the animal was a treifa. There was a problem with the animal. So to galachto psula, his shaving is puzzled because it turns out the korban was never really brought, and therefore, even according to the chum, you have to at least do something to end your nazirus. Nothing was done. So therefore, when he shaved his head, it's a violation of his nazirus. He's still in his nazirus. And all the karbanos, well, they brought one, or he brings karbanos after he shaved his head, right? Those karbanos don't count because the nazirus, because once you shave your head, so you have to start counting a new 30 days to have a gidul pera. So the rest of the karbanos don't count anymore. Let's say one of the 3 animals is the chata. So he brings the chatas first, and he brought a shalol lishma without the right intentions. He thought it was a shlamim, not a chatas. And then he brings the shlamim in the ola, and he finds out, and then he shaves his head. So since the chatas was the first animal brought, and immediately he shaved his head right after that, the chatas is not kosher. A chatas, the Gemara says in Zvachim, the first mission in Zvachim, a chatas shalol lishma is not valid at all. It's not even an adova. It's possible korban lagamre completely. So when he shaved his head again, he was in the middle of his nazirus, and he has to count another 30 days. And the other karbanos he brought after are puzzle. He's in the middle of his karbanos. Happens to be in this halacha. The same thing for an olah shlamim. If he brings the olah shlamim first, and then he shaves his head, and he has the olah, he had in mind the shlamim, the shlamim in mind the olah, or olah in mind the chatas. So shalol shma, even though the Mishnah in Zvachim says that it counts as a korban, but it's not lo alu l'bayim l'shem chova. It doesn't count as the end of your nazirus. And therefore, when you shave your head, you're in the middle of the nazirus, you have to count 30 days, and the karbanos you brought afterwards are possible because you're in the middle of your nazirus. Shimon says also zevach lo aval shar zvachim allo. Shimon says that the first car was a shlamim, and you had in mind when you brought the shlamim for an olah, shalol l'shma. So therefore, that korban doesn't count. But the nazirus is over, and the olah and the chatas you bring afterwards do count. And similarly, everyone agrees that if you put all 3 animals, then you shaved your head, and one of them was found kosher, 2 were found possible, one was found kosher, doesn't make a difference. One of them was brought, so nazirus is over with pascal and chum, not like Rabbi Elazar. One any action that you do to end your nazirus that's kosher, that's done. So therefore, the nazirus is over. When you shave your head, that's part of the process of ending your nazirus. You're not in the middle of your nazirus, and therefore the rest of the karbanos will be brought afterwards in kashrus because your nazirus is technically over. The Gemara says, "Amar Rav Ada Barava Zos Omer except Rabbi Shimon." Rabbi Shimon has a unique sheet that if the first animal was shlamim and it turned out a puzzle, it's okay. Meaning, sorry, it wasn't puzzle. The shlamim was done shalo l'shma, meaning it was done l'shem ola. You thought it was an ola, it turned out it was a shlamim. So therefore, your yotze, my time, when it talks about the end of your nazirus, it talks about shlamim. It doesn't say shlamav. It has to belong to you, right? So when you or makriv, you bring a korban shlamim shalol l'shma, and you think it's a korban ola. So the Mishnah in Zvachim says that technically it's a good korban. It's just lo al l'bayim l'shem chova. It doesn't count as your chova. You got to bring a shalmi chova at the end of your nazirus, but it's still a kosher shlamim, and that's what the pasuk is saying. As long as it's a shlamim, your nazirus is over, and therefore when you shaved your head, it was considered ending of your nazirus. Your nazirus is over, and therefore you do not have to count another 30 days. You just have to bring new karbanos, a new chatas, and a new ola. The Mishnah Mem Zayin Alf on the top. Okay, so they brought the first korban and they threw the blood in the mizbeach, and then it became tummy. Relezer says, because according to Relezer, we learned in the previous Mishnah on Daf Mem Vav, that he says that you need to finish the entire procedure. You have to bring the 3 korbanos, bring the tagalachas, and burn the hair underneath the korban. Until you do all those things, your nazirus is not over. So therefore, even though one korban was kosher, if you became tamei, So you have to go back. When you see you don't have to fully go back, because according to Rebbe Lezer, it's not soser hakol, right? Rebbe Lezer was soser as hakol. We're going to see this is not lav davdim and soser hakol. It just means the Gemara will explain that you have to count another 7 days to become tahor, and then you can enter Nazir. Chamim say, right, once you bring one korban makashras, your Nazir is over. So bring the other karbanos and become tahor. Amrulo Maisa, Chum says to Rebbe Maisa Miriam at Tarmudis, Miriam from a place called Tarmud, I guess in Israel. One of the karbanos was brought, makashras. Right? Before she got a chance to finish the completion of her Nazir, to bring the other karbanos to shave her head. If you hold a woman has to shave her head, it's machlokas, we learned earlier. She wanted her daughter to inquire about her daughter who was deathly ill, and she found out that her daughter died, and she became contaminated with corpse tomb of her daughter. It's a proof to them, right? She at least brought one of the karbanos bakashras, and then she became tameh. So just bring the rest of their karbanos and become tor from your tomb. And the word says, "Kasani Rebbe Lezer Omer Soser Hakol." Rebbe Lezer says it precludes. It dismantles the entire Nazirus. Amar Rebbe Lezer Kol Achar Melos Shiva Soser. Lezer famously said, argues on the Rabbana, that after you finish your Nazirus, even if you become tummy, only 7 days you have to wait till you become Torah, and then you conclude your Nazirus. You don't have to. It's 100-day Nazirus. You don't have to start it again. Amar of my Soser now with Rebbe Lezer Soser Kamanosa. It just means that the karbanos that he brought are invalid because he's tummy, so he has to become Torah and then bring the karbanos. Hakadam Sabra. That makes sense. The Chachamim say, right? What do they argue? They argue on Rebbe Lezer. They say, bring the rest of the karbanos and become Torah. So you see, that's what they're arguing about. Even Rebbe Lezer agreed. It doesn't dismantle the entire Nazirus. It just means bring the rest of the karbanos. Another proof to that is from the Mishnah. She found out the story. It says in the Mishnah. She found out that her daughter was deathly ill. I found that she actually died. The Chachamim, their retort, their proof against Lezer from this story is that they told her, bring the rest of your karbanos and become tar. So therefore, you see that it's just the machlok is about counting 7 days of tara or not. According to Lezer, you have to become tar and then bring the rest of your karbanos. According to the Rabbanan, you can bring the rest of her karbanos, right? And become Torah is not relevant to her Nazirus. Her Nazirus is completely over. Once the first karban was brought by Kashrus, and she has to bring the rest of her karbanos. She's not the one bringing the karbanos. You can't bring a karban batuma, but they're already given over to the Kohanim, and they'll offer the karbanos, and separately she'll become Torah on her own. She's not relevant to that. According to Rebbe Lezer, right, an integral part of bringing the karbanos, Nazirus has to be over. Nazirus is not completely over according to Rebbe Lezer, therefore you have to count 7 days of Tyra and then bring the Karbanah. Shema Mina, so you see a proof from there. Hadr Lach Shlosha, meaning L'chaim, not in the cup anymore. I drank all my coffee already. All right, let's get on to the next parak, the 7th parak of Maseches Nazir. Kohen Gadol v'Nazir. Ein metamin l'krovein, metamin l'meis mitzvah. There's one common halacha between a Kohen Gadol and Nazir, if you know this. A Kohen, a regular Kohen, a Kohen Hedyot, he is not allowed to come in contact with, he can't go into the cemetery. However, for his Zayin Krovim, right, his parents, his children, his brother, his sister, his wife, he's allowed to be matame, to bury them. Kohen Gadol not. Kohen Gadol, the main, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. Even for his Krovim, he can't. A Nazir also. We're going to learn the Gemara. A Nazir also, the Sukkim actually said that a Nazir, even for his Zayin Krovim, can't become Tameh. Right? But both a Nazir and Kohen Gadol can, if they're the only ones there, we'll see, could bury a meis mitzvah, meaning a dead person that no one's going to bury. Let's say a Nazir and Kohen Gadol were walking together on the path. They found a meis mitzvah. Who buries it? Who becomes tamei? Nazir Omer, Tamei Kohen Gadol, Tamei Nazir. Nazir says it's better the Kohen Gadol should become tamei and not the Nazir. Tamei Nazir, Kohen Hedyot. Chachamim disagree completely. They say even if it's not just a Kohen Gadol, a Kohen Hedyot, a regular Kohen, is walking together with the Nazir. It's better that Nazir becomes tamei, even though a Nazir is similar to Kohen Gadol. It's better than Nazir than even a Kohen Hedyot. Amalim Rebbe Lezer says, "Yitam a Kohen she'eno maybe carbon al tamasa." The reason that a Kohen and even a Kohen Gadol comes first to be matame is because we see it's not so severe. It's usher to become tamei to a person. However, if you become tamei, you don't bring a carbon. A Nazir has to bring a carbon, right? It's to bring 3 carbons, an asham, and a chatz, and ola, a pair of birds. and Asham is an animal. Yitama Nazir should make a carbon al Tamas. Amr Lo, they said to him, Yitama Nazir. No, the Nazir should become Tameh. Shein Kedushas Kedushas Olam. Naziris, usually, unless you say you're a Nazir Olam, is only for a short amount of time. Once you're born a Kohen, you're always a Kohen. You're always a Kohen. Right? You can make it that your children are not Kohanim. If you marry a grusha and you have children with a grusha, or a woman who's asura to you, your children will be chalolim, which will basically lose most of their kahuna. However, once you're a Kohen, you're always a Kohen. So therefore, their kedusha is more important. And therefore, even if you're a Kohen hedyot, you let the Nazir deal with the mace mitzvah. And whereas the bishlam a Kohen gadol of a Nazir, right? High savar Kohen gadol, high savar Nazir for the reasons they stated in the Mishnah. Lezer says that the Nazir is more important, and the Chum say the Kohen gadol, and even a Kohen hedyot is better. Meshuach b'shemen ha-mishcha. So now we're going to have different discussions about two different holy people. Who is the one that's matameh for the mace mitzvah? Right? If you could avoid it, it's better not to. Right? Everyone's matameh for the mitzvah. Even a Nazir like a Kohen gadol. You're a Nazir and a Kohen gadol. You're matameh for the mace mitzvah. However, if you could avoid it, it's better to avoid. So who's the one that lowers themselves and matameh themselves? So we had a machlokas about Kohen gadol and Nazir in the Mishnah. Let's say another discussion. Meshuach b'shemen ha-mishcha, on top of him, Zayin and Beis, Meruba b'gadim. You have two Kohen gadols, right? Until the time of Yoshia HaMelech, right? They always used to anoint the Kohen gadol. The Torah says when you have a Kohen gadol, the next Kohen gadol, you anoint him with shemen ha-mishcha, a special oil that is described in the Torah, how you make, and you anoint the Kohen gadol when he's inaugurated with that. Yoshia HaMelech, close to Chorban Bayis HaRishon, he hid the shemen ha-mishcha because he saw the destruction of Beis HaMikdash. From that point on, the only way that someone became a Kohen gadol is by putting on the Shemona Begadim. A Kohen hedyot only wears four unique clothes, and a Kohen gadol wears 8 unique clothes. Meruba Begadim just means he's a Kohen gadol without the shemen ha-mishcha. So Meshuach b'shemen ha-mishcha adif. He has more kedusha. Ilu Meshuach b'shemen ha-mishcha maybe paraba al kol mitzvos. How do you know his kedusha is more? Right? Because one of and talks about in Parshas Bamidbar, talks about that if you, right, normally a person, a Jew, who does an Aveira, that if you do b'mezi, you chayav kares. If you do b'shogi, you're chayav a chatas, korban chatas. Now, the chatas that you bring is a she goat or a she lamb. However, if you're a Kohen gadol, so it's worse, and you have to bring a bull, right? It's basically a 3-year-old cow, male cow. You have to bring a bull for that Avera. For if you paskin that shal, you're a Kohen gadol and you paskin wrong, you made a mistake, the shogeg. So instead of bringing the she goat, you bring a he bull. Habal kol mitzvos. The reason it's a bal kol mitzvos, that's the beginning of the parsha. It's a bal kol mitzvos. Right? That's the one difference technically, right? Because it says in the parsha about parabal kol mitzvos, it says mashuach b'shemen ha-mishcha. So if he doesn't have the shemen ha-mishcha, he's a Kohen gadol, but without formally getting anointed with the olive oil, so then he doesn't bring par, he brings a regular she-goat if he makes a mistake. Meshuach she'avar u'muru b'gadim. Let's say you have a Kohen gadol who's meshuach, he had shemen ha-mishcha. However, he was removed from his status as being Kohen gadol. We're going to see there's two possible reasons why he'd be removed. Either he saw Keri, right, which passes him, which basically you can come back to, you go to the mikveh the next day, you can reinstate, or you have a mum, you have a blemish, let's say you break your arm or something like that. So, a Kohen or a Kohen gadol are not fit to serve with mumim, with certain blemishes, right? If it's a mum that's going to last forever, you're never fit again. But if it's a mum she'over that will pass and will be healed, your arm could heal itself. So then you could return. The Kohen gadol could return to his status Kohen gadol once his arm is healed. So let's say you have a meshuach she'avar. He had the anointing oil, but he's not currently working as Kohen gadol. Meruba b'gadim, the Kohen gadol, Meruba b'gadim is working as Kohen gadol. Meruba b'gadim adif. Right, we say he's more holy, and we'll let the other one, let the Meshuach b'shemen ha-mishcha she'avar, he'll deal with the mace mitzvah. The Meruba b'gadim avid avoda, he's doing the avoda currently. V'ilu Meshuach she'avar la'avar avoda, who right now he can't do the avoda. Avar machmas kiryo v'achmas mum. Let's say you have two Kohen gadols. They're both not currently working. One is because he saw Keri, and one is because Timin al-Mish, and one is because he has a mum she'avar, he broke his arm. Avar machmas. Avar machmas keryo adif ilu high chazi lavoda machar ilu avar machmas mum lo chazi lavoda. So there, if you have both of them together and they're passing by a mace mitzvah, we rather have the one who is over machmas mumo, because he is going to be staying away from being kadol for a longer time. Karaoke just tomorrow, he already could go to the mikvah and can become Torah at night at Harav Shemesh, Gezachama. So therefore, it's a shorter period of time. So therefore, he has more kedusha, while the other person deal with the meis mitzvah. Now they have a question. Those were, I guess, obvious to the Gemara. Meshulach Melchama Skan Haminayu Adam. Meshulach Melchama is a Kohen who leads the army, right? And the Torah describes in the Sefer Dvarim, it talks about that you have to anoint him also with oil. But he's not doing the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. He's there to lead the troops. The Skan is the deputy Kohen Gadol. The one, the beginning of Maseches Yuma talks about that he would potentially replace the Kohen Gadol if the Kohen Gadol saw carry on Yom Kippur to do the avodah in the Kodesh HaGadosh. Which one is more holy? Mishol Melchama Adif the Chazil Melchama. He is more important because, he's leading the charge in the army. Odil Maskan Adif the Chazil Avodah. Skan is more important because he's doing the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, potentially doing the avodah even on Yom Kippur. Tashma. So it's actually clearly a brisa, which shows clearly what to do in this case. The skan seemingly has more kedusha, and therefore the Meshul Melchama is the one who deals with meis mitzvah. Vatanya, but the Gemara has a brisa. Meshul Melchama kodem the skan. It says Meshul Melchama precedes. He has more important than a skan, than a deputy kohen gadol. Amar Zutra, lena hachayosa Meshul Melchama adif. In terms of if there's two people that are about to die, a Meshulach Melchama and a Skan, you can only save one of them. So the one to save is in Meshulach Melchama, my time, or the Talubei Rabbim. He's leading the army, right? A lot of people are at his charge. So he's more important. When it comes to being Matami for Meis Mitzvah, Skan Adif. The Zanir, Chinim ben Tikkun is Omer, Lama Tikkun Skan the Kohen Gadol. Why do they make a deputy Kohen Gadol? Shemir Ba Psula, Hari Nechnas Meshamish Taktav. If for some reason the Kohen Gadol couldn't do that vote on Yom Kippur, the Skan would step in his place. So therefore, he has almost a kedusha of a Kohen Gadol. So therefore, when it comes to meis mitzvah, we'd rather have the Meshul Melchama, who's just a regular Kohen. He'll go on mitam with meis mitzvah, and the Skan will stay aside. Until now, we're only talking about, the Mishnah was talking about two people, Kohen Gadol and Nazir, walking side by side. But both of them, a Nazir and Kohen Gadol, they're the only ones there. They're both mitam with meis mitzvah. We don't even know that Kohen Gadol and Nazir, right? Even though they can't be for the Zayin Krov, but for meis mitzvah they can't. The Tana Rabbanan, Al Kol Nafshos Meis Lo Yavo. Pasuk says, by a Kohen Gadol, he can't come in contact with any corpse. If the pasuk is talking about people are not as Zayin Krovim, Kal V'chomer, I'm not Kohen Hedyot. It already said by Kohen Hedyot, Shuman Itmal Krovim, that he is Matavi for his Krovim. Eino Mitmal Rechokim. A regular Kohen can't be Matavi with someone who's not a Zayin Krovim. Kohen Gadol, Sheina Mitzvah Lekrovim, Odin Sheina Mitzvah Leroch. We know from a Kal V'chomer, certainly he's not going to value Mitami for Rechokim, for people that are not Zayin Krovim. El V'krovim Akasim Adaber. It must be talking about Kol Nafshos Ameis, adding by Kohen Gadol, that even for the Zayin Krovim, he can't be Mitami. So then why does it specify La'aviv? We're going to see it tomorrow. We'll darshan Ul'imo. We're starting darshan the pasuk. La'aviv Ul'imo. La'aviv Hu'dein Hamitzah Hul Meis Mitzvah. The first part of the pasuk is darshaning. The reason it specifies the father, we know with the father, he's one of the Zayin Krovim, he can't be Mitame. In fact, it says the father again, tell you that it's only the father, but in certain instances, he could become Mitame for a dead person. That's a mace mitzvah, a mace that has no one to bury him. In that case, it's very significant that he needs to be buried. That's the conclusion of tonight's shir. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Sion, where I talk about this machlokas in the Mishnah between Reb Eliezer and the Chamim. Which one has more kedusha, the Nazir or the Kohen Gadol? And with that, I explain a couple of other machlokas in the Gemara. We just had a machlokas yesterday and 2 dafim ago between Reb Eliezer and the Chamim about the end of your Nazirus. Is one act good to end your Nazirus, or do you need all of the procedures to end your Nazirus? And we have a third machlokas also between Reb Eliezer and the Chamim about if you finish your Nazirus, but you didn't bring any of the karbanos, right, and you become tamei is it soser everything, or is it only soser a certain amount of time? 3 different machlokas, and I'm going to connect to all of them. So Reb Eliezer is a shmusi from Beis Shammai. The Chamim is what we pass like now. Eventually, Yemos Mashiach, the Brisa says we'll pass, not the right Medrash says we'll pass like Reb Eliezer, it was shmusi. But I'll explain that and more, Ian with Ben Sion, coming up next.